As night fell, the girl awoke to a sharp, unbearable pain, realizing she was trapped in a nightmare. Her vision slowly cleared, and she could finally make out the man's face in front of her. In agony she screamed, "Please don't touch me." "Why me?" The man replied coldly, "Because you're the only one." The next morning as he stood up, Si-Yihin asked, "Are you still planning to run?" Trembling she whispered, I won't anymore." Without another word, Si-Yihin left the room. Watching him walk away, the girl finally allowed herself to relax for the first time. She got up and walked to the mirror, only to be struck by the terrifying realization. She had been sent back 7 years in time. Because of her failed escape, Si-Yihin had taken everything from her, leaving her with nothing. The root of it all could be traced back to her closest friend Shen Mingqi. Shen Mingqi had always pretended to be harmless in front of others, but behind her back she was constantly scheming, trying to get close to Si-Yihin and betray her at every turn. Even the idea of deliberately making herself look unattractive to disgust Si-Yihin had come from Shen Mingqi. What surprised her, though, was that Si-Yihin didn't seem to mind her pitiful appearance at all. Watching Shen Mingqi feign concern for her, she knew that today, Shen Mingqi would seek Gu Yuezha's help to help her escape, while secretly running to Si-Yihin to inform him that she had run off with another man. Because of this, Si-Yihin grew more and more volatile, his temper becoming increasingly erratic and his possessiveness growing stronger. She understood that until she avenged her past life, she could not afford to do anything that would provoke Si-Yihin. Armed with memories of her past life, Wanwan decided that this time, she would no longer let anyone control her. She would protect her family and friends, and make sure Shen Mingqi's reputation was destroyed. Just like in her past life, Si-Yihin hadn't shown up for 3 whole days. Wanwan arrived at the courtyard Si-Yihin had designed for her, a place that she had destroyed in her previous life. Just then she heard someone calling her name. It was Gu Yuezha, the man she had loved in her past life. Gu Yuezha extended his hands, eager to take her away, but without hesitation Wanwan turned him down. In her past life she had followed Gu Yuezha and left, ultimately losing everything, only to bear the full brunt of Si-Yihin's uncontrollable wrath. Hiding in the shadows, Si-Yihin saw Wanwan's refusal and finally exhaled in relief. As soon as Wanwan returned to her room, she found Si-Yihin sitting coldly on the sofa, beckoning her over. Even in this new life, facing this cold-hearted man, she instinctively felt a pang of fear. She knew that if she was to change her fate, she had to overcome this fear. But before she could process her thoughts, Si-Yihin suddenly yanked her into his arms, holding her tightly. Then without warning he kissed her forcefully. As she felt the heat of his lips, her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. When she finally opened her eyes, she was startled to see that Si-Yihin had fallen asleep. The butler standing nearby was equally shocked. He couldn't believe it. Master Yihin, who had a severe sleep disorder, had actually fallen asleep. And to top it off, he hadn't slept a wink in 3 days. The butler, terrified that Wanwan might try to sneak away, frantically gestured for silence, signaling to avoid waking Si-Yihin. But then the butler's phone suddenly rang, startling both of them to the point that their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. As expected, Si-Yihin opened his eyes, his gaze filled with a murderous intent. In that instant both of them felt like their lives were hanging by a thread. Fortunately, the quick-witted Wanwan immediately covered his eyes and softly whispered, "It's all right, go back to sleep." The butler, watching the scene unfold, let out a long sigh of relief as his tension eased. Gazing at Si-Yihin, who was now peacefully asleep, Wanwan couldn't help but wonder, is this still the same ruthless monster I once knew? The next morning, a ray of sunlight streamed through the bedroom window, casting its glow on the bed. Wanwan sat up, her eyes still heavy with sleep. Looking at the makeup residue on her hands, she couldn't help but reflect. In my past life, I had kept my body pure for Gu Yuezha and had done everything to disgust Si-Yihin. Every day I was forced to wear the thickest, most unflattering smoky eye makeup, never daring to remove it even when I slept, only to realize it was all for nothing. Well, at last I can shed that heavy burden. Since I was 18, I had never shown my true face to anyone. Now I can finally be myself again. Wanwan removed the heavy smoky eye makeup, revealing her true beauty, and one couldn't help but recall the saying, "No lotus can compare to a beautiful woman's makeup and the fragrance of pearls in a palace breeze." After finishing her morning routine, Wanwan instinctively reached for the clothes she used to wear to disguise herself. But then she paused. Since she had been given a second chance at life, why should she continue to torment herself? She decided to head up to the third floor, where Si Yihan had prepared an entire wardrobe for her, the latest fashions that she had never worn in the past 7 years. With a smile on her face, she dressed in what she truly liked and headed downstairs. However, as soon as she reached the bottom of the stairs, Si Yihan's friend Lin Kei mistook her for another woman. His eyes nearly popped out as he stared at the stunning woman before him. Wanwan sat down to eat breakfast, but she noticed that Si Yihan had been staring at her the entire time. She thought to herself, whatever, he doesn't care anyway. But then, unexpectedly, Si Yihan reached out and gently brushed her hair back. He casually remarked, "Your hair is falling into your bowl," leaving Wanwan stunned. Even Lin Kei couldn't help but whisper to Si Yihan, "Bro, you've finally come to your senses. You should have chosen someone like her all along. She's beautiful and full of femininity. Why let that woman Yi Wanwan ruin you?" Then he remembered something and asked, "By the way, where's that ugly woman? Did you kick her out?" Lin Kei scoffed, "That ugly girl, what's so special about her that you'd hide her away for 2 years? When she first arrived, she must have weighed at least 150 pounds. I just don't get your taste. Why would you like a heavy-set girl?" Wanwan finally snapped, her anger boiling over. "Lin Kei, what's wrong with 150 pounds? So what if I'm overweight? Did I eat your family's rice?" Lin Kei immediately felt like this voice sounded oddly familiar. After a moment of thought, it dawned on him. "You're Yi Wanwan?" Lin Kei couldn't believe his ears. Staring at her, he continued, "Did you get plastic surgery or something?" Wanwan was fuming with rage and shot back, "You're the one who should get plastic surgery. This is just how I look. And by the way, where am I fat? I just ate a little too much during my teenage years. I'm clearly 140 pounds. When did I ever break 150? Just as Wanwan was about to explode again, a large hand gently brushed through her hair. Looking up, she saw Si Yihan. He calmly said, "You're not fat." Wanwan felt an unexpected warmth from Si Yihan today and nervously replied, "I'm not fat now either." But Si Yihan casually added, "You weren't fat back then either." For a moment they both fell into silence. Lin Kei, witnessing this dog food moment, felt utterly defeated. With a loud yelp, he rushed out of the room, unable to bear it any longer. Wanwan sat down, slightly annoyed that Si Yihan hadn't reacted at all to her carefully chosen outfit. Her pride getting the better of her, she blurted out, "Didn't you notice anything different about me today?" Si Yihan looked genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" Wanwan sighed inwardly, then clarified, "High appearance." To her surprise, Si Yihan replied calmly, "Still the same, delicious." Wanwan was speechless. This devil seriously had a twisted taste. No matter how she looked, he never seemed to mind. Thankfully, she'd come to her senses after being reborn. Otherwise, she might have kept playing the fool, disguising herself like in her previous life. "Why? Is there a problem?" Si Yihan's low voice came again. Wanwan jolted and quickly said, No problem." But then Si Yihan chuckled softly. He laughed. That was rare. Maybe he was in a good mood after finally getting a proper night's sleep. Should she take this chance to ask for something? In her past life, her obsession with Guyuezha cost her everything. The Yi family's future, her education, even her dignity. She'd ended up repeating 2 grades. Now that she had a second chance, she couldn't waste it again. Gaining confidence, she looked up at him and asked brightly, "The college entrance exams are coming up. Can I go back to school?" But just then the air around them seemed to freeze. Si Yihan's cold, piercing gaze sliced through the room and he asked in a frosty tone, "Going back to school?" There was no other sound after that. Wanwan involuntarily shivered, nervously replying, "If not, forget it. I was just saying it casually." She thought to herself, "No wonder he wouldn't believe that I'd actually focus on my studies. He must think I'm just trying to escape. Oh, I already said forget it. Why are you still looking at me like you want to kill me?" Wanwan muttered in frustration under her breath. At that moment, the butler's voice could be heard, asking about the plans to renovate the garden. Before he could finish, he froze when he saw a strange woman sitting next to Si Yihan. His curiosity spiked. Who was this woman who was dining with the 9th master? Seeing the crowd standing frozen at the door, Wanwan casually remarked, I didn't put on any makeup today. Did I scare you all? The butler's mind raced as the voice sounded strangely familiar. After a moment, realization struck. It's you, Wanwan. Seeing the stunned expressions on everyone's faces, Wanwan muttered to herself, I think the previous makeup looked better. The sight of her green hair had clearly stunned them, and the butler couldn't help but think to himself, stunned? You really don't know, do you? It's more like a horror show. Seeing that no one spoke for a long time, Wanwan assumed she had scared them and quickly added, I'll just change back tomorrow if it makes you all feel more comfortable. The butler and the others jumped in fright at the suggestion. No need to change. It's fine just like this. But inwardly they were thinking, so it's not that Yi Wanwan had a problem with her looks, but with her mind. Wanwan looked at their nervous expressions and casually asked, Are you all here to discuss the garden renovations? Can I offer some suggestions? The butler shot a helpless glance at Si Yihan. To his surprise, Si Yihan merely replied, Do whatever you like. The butler's expression deflated instantly, as if all the air had been let out of him. He couldn't help but remember how Wanwan had once directed everyone in the garden to burn this, uproot that, and immediately felt a sense of dread for the future. With no other choice, he asked reluctantly, Miss, do you have any suggestions? Wanwan replied calmly, I don't like lavender or roses. Is it possible to plant sunflowers instead? The butler looked puzzled. Miss, do you like sunflowers? Wanwan shrugged, Not particularly. They're okay, I guess. Then why insist on planting them? The butler pressed, clearly confused. Wanwan beamed. Because I can stir-fry the seeds later. They're delicious. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone looked like they'd just seen a ghost. And that was only the beginning. She had the elegant koi pond swapped out for one filled with common carp, replaced the rose trellis with a grapevine arbor, and planted sweet potatoes and cabbages across the perfectly manicured lawn. Even the famously unflappable Si Yihan couldn't take it anymore. He stared her down, his voice colder than ice. Did I not feed you enough here? Wanwan jumped in alarm. No. Everything's great. But deep inside she thought of her past life. Plentiful food, yes, but no freedom. She'd been so mentally drained she couldn't enjoy a single bite. This time she just wanted to enjoy life, eat well, and keep her pantry and soul stocked. Besides, she had always been a bit of a food-hoarding hamster at heart. Si Yihan studied her for a long moment. No one knew what he was thinking. Then finally he said, Let her do what she wants. The butler looked like he was about to cry. He had thought Wanwan had finally matured. But instead she just turned the imperial gardens into a suburban vegetable patch. Wanwan was thrilled when she heard Si Yihan's arrangement, exclaiming, Great! By autumn, I'll finally be able to eat some cabbage. Si Yihan, hearing Wanwan's words, quietly pondered, By autumn? In the past she was only focused on escaping from me. Never did she think about the future. The night was bright, with lights illuminating every corner of the room. Wanwan knew that this wasn't just about going back to school. More importantly, it was about her relationship and situation with Si Yihan. If she wanted to change things, she had to have a serious conversation with him. Taking a deep breath, she approached Si Yihan's door and knocked softly. Hey, I need to talk to you. Is now a good time? Si Yihan didn't respond, merely turning and walking into the room. Wanwan followed him in silently. This was the first time in all these years that she had stepped into this room. In a corner of the room stood the hypnotist Mo Xian, who seemed to notice Si Yihan was preparing to sleep. Wanwan thought to herself, sleeping seems like such a hassle. He fell asleep so quickly last night. It must be because he hasn't slept in 3 days. Seeing Wanwan enter, Mo Xian quietly exited the room. Si Yihan sat down, poured a glass of wine and coldly asked, What's on your mind? Wanwan suppressed the fear in her chest and calmly replied, I want to talk about our relationship. Si Yihan responded in a cold, domineering tone, You are mine. Wanwan couldn't help but feel speechless at his blunt answer. He really was straightforward. Still, she gathered her thoughts and spoke, I've never understood why you would choose me. With your status and position, no matter what kind of woman you like, tall, short, fat, thin, or into more exotic tastes, there would be countless women willing to cater to you. But whatever the reason, since that can't be changed, could we change the nature of our relationship? You've been angry with me for resisting, But who wouldn't want to have control over their own life? It's like a handful of sand. The tighter you hold it, the faster it slips away. And besides, a forced relationship is never sweet. You should understand that. To her surprise, Si Yihan responded with, "Who says I like sweet melons?" Won felt speechless inside. How am I supposed to respond to that? But in the next moment, Won stood up, gazing at Si Yihan and asked, "Are you sure?" Under Si Yihan's intense gaze, Won leaned in and kissed him lightly, murmuring, "Are you sure you don't like sweet melons?" Despite having lived 2 lives, Won couldn't help but feel a little shy. She quickly added, "Honestly, I just want to live like an ordinary girl. Study, fall in love, and live a normal life." She lowered her head slightly, shyly adding, "Sweet melons are actually delicious. If you give it time, I'll become a sweet melon too. How can you know you don't like it if you don't try, right?" The next moment, Won put on a pitiful expression that made her look like someone in need of help. She whispered, "So really, can't you give me another chance? I'll definitely grow and improve." Si Yihan looked at the eager expression on Won's face, momentarily speechless. After a pause, he finally agreed to her request. When Won heard his agreement, her face lit up with pure joy and surprise. Overcome with excitement, she impulsively kissed him. As she hurriedly left, Si Yihan stood there, a bit speechless, watching her go. He absent-mindedly touched the spot where she had kissed him, lost in his own thoughts. Back in her room, Won couldn't believe how smoothly their conversation had gone. Going to school meant she wouldn't have to stay in this cage-like place anymore. She couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Si Yihan was actually quite easy to talk to. In her past life, all of her attention had been focused on Gu Yuezha. She had never truly communicated with Si Yihan, which ultimately led to her sorrowful end. If she had tried to change things back then, would the outcome have been different? Just as Won was lost in thought, the phone rang. She glanced at the screen and saw it was a call from Shun Mingqi. Shun Mingqi was likely calling to confirm whether Won had been taken away by Gu Yuezha, as she had already secretly reported this to Si Yihan. Won sneered inwardly, knowing that everything had already been handled. Si Yihan wasn't angry. In fact, their relationship had grown closer because of it. When Shin Mingqi heard that Won was planning to go to school, she was taken aback. Could it be that Si Yihan actually allowed her to go out? Won is supposed to run off with Gu Yuezha. How could Si Yihan let her off so easily? After hanging up, Won muttered to herself, "No rush, Shin Mingqi. We'll settle our score slowly." After Won left, the hypnotist continued helping Si Yihan fall asleep. But 2 hours passed and he still hadn't dozed off. This made the hypnotist start to doubt his own abilities. After checking Si Yihan's condition thoroughly, he confirmed there was nothing physically wrong. So the cause of the insomnia must be Won. The hypnotist was puzzled. Why was Si Yihan so concerned about this girl? What troubled him even more was Si Yihan's extreme wariness towards others, and he felt completely powerless to help. The next morning, Won woke up early and put on a half-made smoky eye makeup. She knew she couldn't reveal her true self just yet. If any boy at school confessed to her and the news reached Si Yihan, she would be in serious trouble. While she longed to show her true self, she knew she had to endure until she was strong enough. After finishing her preparations, Won headed downstairs for breakfast, only to find Lin Kei and Xiejiji were already there. When they saw her with the green hair and smoky makeup, their reactions were instantaneous. Lin Kei couldn't help but spit out his coffee. He muttered in disbelief, "What the heck, my eyes are going blind. She was so beautiful without makeup yesterday and today it's this smoky look. Who can handle that?" After a quick breakfast, Won greeted them and got ready to leave for school. Watching her walk away, Xiejiji sighed. "She really seems like a different person now. Ninth Master, since you know everything, why are you still indulging her? This isn't your usual style." Si Yihan murmured to himself, "She's changed all right." In his mind he thought, she's just changed her tactics trying to escape from me. Just as his words left his mouth, Won suddenly rushed over. Won suddenly rushed forward and kissed Si Yihan passionately. She pulled back and smiled, whispering, "Don't forget to think of me." Si Yihan watched her leave, his eyes deep and unreadable as if he was lost in thought. Turning to Xiejiji, he said calmly, "Now I understand." But deep inside he thought, maybe this is the reason I can't resist, the force that makes it impossible for me to let go. The scene shifted and Wanwan found herself back on the long-missed campus. As she stepped onto the grounds once again, an indescribable feeling rose in her chest. Since her rebirth, today was the first time she truly felt like she had come alive again. When the students pointed and whispered, Wanwan didn't even bat an eye. Compared to the suffering she endured in her past life, this was nothing. Entering the classroom, she ignored the mocking stares of her classmates. In her previous life, she had been nothing but their amusement, a clown for them to laugh at. What's all the fuss about? Didn't you hear the bell? Class is starting. The teacher's voice suddenly broke through the noise. The teacher, seeing Wanwan's disheveled appearance, couldn't help but feel a wave of disgust. Well, she'll be expelled soon anyway, the teacher thought. I can't be bothered to waste my breath on her. She was assigned to the last row. After all, the seating arrangement was based on rankings, and being dead last, she had nowhere else to go. As she reached her seat, the handsome guy sitting in front of her was none other than Si Yihin's nephew, the school heartthrob. However, he had a reputation for smoking, fighting, and generally causing trouble. His grades were also horrendous. Si Xia, who had been sleeping, noticed Wanwan and immediately felt a chill run down his spine. He coldly uttered a single word, "Get out." Wanwan looked at the arrogant Si Xia and thought to herself, in my past life I may have acted bold, but I was really scared deep down. If it were the old me, I would have cowered in fear. But now she slammed her textbook on the desk and said coldly, "Why should I?" Si Xia hadn't expected Wanwan to retort. Without thinking, he said, "This is the seat for the student ranked last in the exam." Wanwan sneered and replied, "I earned this seat by my own ability. Got a problem with that?" Si Xia was left speechless by her sharp comeback. The other girls around them began whispering among themselves, assuming Wanwan was just another girl trying to get close to Si Xia, thinking she could make a move on their beloved school heartthrob. But Wanwan, having been reborn, knew she had to stand out. This time she was determined to live a life full of excitement and purpose. The first problem she needed to tackle was the school's decision to expel her. In her past life, she had never focused on her studies, but now, to get the school to reverse their decision, this upcoming exam would be crucial. Fortunately, Wanwan had an incredible memory. She could absorb everything from her textbooks with just a single glance. Si Xia watched Wanwan reading intently, puzzled. What on earth happened to this girl? Is she really studying? But soon enough he noticed that she was flipping through the pages faster and faster, and he thought to himself, seems like she's just pretending. Annoyed, Si Xia muttered, "It's so noisy." Wanwan looked up and mocked, "Complaining about the noise? If you're so bothered, why don't you get good grades and sit in the front? It's survival of the fittest, the strong rule. The weak have no right to complain." Si Xia was stunned. He never imagined a learning underachiever like her would mock him. His anger flared up inside. "I'll show you what survival of the fittest really looks like," he thought. Later that evening, the dorm was eerily quiet. Wanwan returned to her room alone, her roommates having moved out because of their exclusion. She felt a sense of security she hadn't felt in a while and decided it was time to get to work and start reviewing. Just then there was a knock on the door. Wanwan opened it to find her best friend, Shin Mingqi, standing there. Seeing the fake warmth on Shin Mingqi's face, Wanwan couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Wanwan's attitude was extremely cold, her tone betraying how distant she had become. Shin Mingqi looked at Wanwan's cold demeanor and felt an unsettling sense of confusion. What's going on with her? Why has she become so strange? However, the next moment she found a love letter addressed to Gu Yuezha. Instantly, a scheme flashed through her mind. She quickly took out her phone and snapped a picture of the letter. With her phone in hand, she hurriedly left the room. Once outside, she immediately sent the photo to Si Yihin. As she did, she couldn't help but fantasize that someday, Si Yihin would belong to her. She was the mistress of the manor, the sole ruler of everything. After finishing her homework, Wanwan also stumbled upon the unfinished love letter. She recalled how, in her past life, Shin Mingqi had used this letter to provoke Si Yihin's fury, leading him to capture her and bring her back. Suddenly, a brilliant idea crossed her mind. Since the letter was unfinished, why not send it to Si Yihin herself? At that moment, Si Yihin, on the brink of rage, received a message that pushed him to the edge. His subordinate stood trembling nearby, watching the shattered phone in silence. On the screen, the love letter from Wanwan was still visible. The butler was on the verge of tears, silently praying that things wouldn't escalate. Si Yihan's heart grew colder as he thought to himself, Wanwan, I told you, this is the last time I'm giving you a chance, the last time I'll trust you. Then his cold voice echoed, bring her back. The butler, terrified, quickly responded, yes, yes. I'll send someone right away. In an instant, a convoy of cars sped toward the school, like a pack of wolves chasing their prey. The butler stood silently beside Si Yihan, fully aware that this would be another storm they had to weather. Suddenly, the sound of a notification pinged. The butler quickly grabbed his phone and looked, only to see the same love letter again. Upon closer inspection, the message was from Yi Wanwan. Under the surprised gaze of the butler, Si Yihan picked up the phone. Seeing the love letter Wanwan had sent him, Si Yihan's expression changed. He was taken aback, realizing that he had even sent people to capture Wanwan. Reading the overly sweet and cheesy words in the letter, Si Yihan found himself at a loss for words. The butler, seeing this, wanted to ask, but Si Yihan coldly interrupted, be quiet. Meanwhile, Wanwan anxiously awaited a response from Si Yihan. Thinking back to the scene from her past life when he had captured her, she shuddered. Ding. Finally, Si Yihan replied with a single word, okay. To Wanwan, that single, okay, felt like winning a $5 million lottery. She never expected the cold, ruthless Si Yihan to be so easy to deal with. Feeling a little daring, Wanwan quickly sent another message. The exam is in 7 days and I can't message you every day. To her surprise, Si Yihan's reply came almost instantly with just a single word. Wanwan thought to herself, this big bad wolf is so different from how he was in my past life. If I'd known he was this easy to communicate with, why did I have to go through so much suffering? What was I thinking? Fortunately, this matter was perfectly resolved. Si Yihan also ordered his subordinates to return to the manor. A week later, Wanwan walked back into the classroom, her face marked by 2 large dark circles under her eyes. For the past few days she had only slept 4 hours a night to prepare for the exams, and Si Xia was freaked out, exclaiming that he had seen a ghost. The exam began and Wanwan answered the questions with lightning speed, as if guided by divine inspiration. To Si Xia, though, Wanwan seemed like a lunatic, probably just randomly filling in answers. During the final math exam, Wanwan simply decided to take a nap. Don't ask. Math was just her kryptonite. Soon after, the teacher walked into the classroom holding the grade sheets. She didn't need to know Wanwan's score because, after all, Wanwan was always at the bottom of the class. The teacher pulled out the expulsion notice from the school for Yi Wanwan and sneered, now even the expulsion notice has arrived, you should just leave. Wanwan, however, remained calm and composed, looking up and saying, I remember the school rules. If there's no serious mistake, punishment can be waived to give students a chance to redeem themselves. The teacher scoffed and said, so what? What does that have to do with you? Wanwan stared at the teacher and replied coolly, what if I came first? Instantly, the entire class burst into laughter. Someone joked, if Yi Wanwan comes first, I'll eat shit. The teacher assumed Wanwan was just being difficult and threatening, saying, do you want me to call your parents, the ones you're estranged from, and have them take you away? Upon hearing this, Wanwan's face showed a moment of guilt. She thought about how she had severed ties with her family because of Gu Yuezha, just wanting him to notice her, but she had never realized how much her parents had sacrificed for her, bearing countless burdens and shielding her from disaster. She had even caused her parents to be framed, losing everything. The people she most wanted to see were her family, but they were also the ones she feared facing the most. Seeing this, Wanwan finally understood that she had no choice but to face the situation directly and calmly said, teacher, I'm just making a normal request. Seeing this, the teacher had no choice but to check Wanwan's grades. To everyone's surprise, she had indeed come in first place, even with a score of 0 in math. The next moment, the teacher slammed his hand on the desk, angrily saying, Yi Wanwan, you cheated. The teacher then took Wanwan to the academic affairs office, where after a discussion, they decided to let her retake the exam. As it turned out, aside from math, she had gotten every other subject right, which shocked all the teachers in the school. Her math teacher insisted that Wanwan should apply herself evenly across all subjects, especially math. But Wanwan responded with a helpless grin, I want to learn math too, but alas, I can't do it. Because Wanwan had come first, the school could no longer expel her. With the situation leaning in her favor, the teacher had no choice but to apologize to her. Wanwan knew the apology was because she had leverage, knowing the principal's affair, but she also understood that the school would continue to target her. Returning to her seat, Wanwan wore a bright smile. She had come in first, could sit in the front row, and finally didn't have to sit next to Xia. However, just 10 minutes later they were seated next to each other again. There was no choice. After all, Xia had come second this time and had wanted to show Wanwan how great he was, only to slap himself in the face. Seeing this, Wanwan couldn't help but sarcastically say, "You still have a lot of work to do, young man." Xia snapped, "Shut up." He thought to himself, if I had known this would happen, I might as well have just stuck to being last. But the next moment, Wanwan simply laid her head down on the desk and began to catch up on sleep. She hadn't been getting enough rest lately. After a while, the teacher announced that the school was organizing a cultural performance, and our class's play was Snow White. The prince had already been chosen as Xia, but they still needed a Snow White. It was decided that they would draw lots to pick her. The girls in the class were in an uproar, each trying to secure the lead role of Snow White. Xia, however, didn't care and casually said, "Whatever, just pick one." He threw the paper into the hands of the class monitor. The room fell silent as everyone eagerly awaited to see who would be the lucky one. The class monitor started to announce the winner, and when the paper was unfolded, she too was shocked. Wanwan had been chosen. Xia was also stunned, completely taken aback. His first instinct was to want to chop off the hand that had drawn that lot. The boys and girls in the class were all expressing how ugly Yi Wanwan was, saying she was embarrassing the class. Wanwan, who had been peacefully sleeping, was suddenly woken by the noise. She blinked in confusion, not understanding what was happening. The students demanded that the lot be redrawn, and the teacher, feeling that Wanwan was becoming a distraction, asked for Xia's opinion. However, Xia casually replied, "Whatever." Deep down, he didn't want to go back on his word. The girls in the class were practically ready to tear Wanwan apart with their eyes, filled with anger. The teacher saw an opportunity for revenge and thought to herself, "This is the perfect chance to get back at Wanwan." She then spoke up, "Yi Wanwan, this performance is extremely important. If you mess it up, no one will be able to save you." Wanwan felt speechless. She had just taken a nap and ended up being chosen as Snow White, and now she had become a target for her female classmates. Despite the teacher and classmates targeting her, Wanwan felt strangely calm inside. She didn't start trouble, but she wasn't afraid of it either. However, the next second she realized things were about to go terribly wrong. If Ziyihin found out that she was playing the role of a couple with another boy, especially with a kissing scene, she knew it would be disastrous. It was like asking for trouble. Wanwan tried to tell the teacher that she didn't want to participate, but the teacher wasn't about to let her off that easily. "You're still in your probationary period at the school, you can't just cause trouble," the teacher said sternly. Her classmates chimed in. Even Xia, the school heartthrob, didn't mind her. How dare she quit the role? Wanwan immediately muttered, "What the hell? Who does Xia think he is to judge me?" However, Wanwan casually replied, "I'm just worried my boyfriend might get jealous." Xia was stunned, thinking to himself, this girl actually has a boyfriend? Is she blind or something? Back in her dorm, Wanwan thought to herself, "I've finally managed to keep Ziyihin under control. I can't let anything go wrong now." Since the school was still in its probationary period and she couldn't refuse the role, Wanwan realized that her only option was to use her secret weapon. A horrendous makeup look to make Xia quit the role on his own. With that thought, Wanwan happily started singing, "The people chasing me have lined up all the way to the Milky Way." But the next second she looked up to see Ziyihin sitting there, quietly watching her. Seeing Ziyihin, who resembled a cold, ruthless king, Wanwan immediately felt a sense of pressure. Like a mouse seeing a cat. Instinctively she felt the urge to run away. She quickly closed the door, thinking, "I must have opened it the wrong way." Wanwan then cautiously peeked her head out, confirming it was indeed Ziyihin. Realizing it was him, Wanwan instinctively thought of running but also wondered what to do. When she reached the door, she locked it behind her. Then she turned and rushed into Ziyihin's arms, planting a kiss on him. Ziyihin was slightly stunned, looking at her with a hint of disbelief. Wanwan sweetly asked, "Darling, why are you here?" But inside she was worried that her little trick might be uncovered. However, Ziyihin didn't answer her question directly, instead coldly asking, The people chasing you have lined up all the way to the Milky Way? Wanwan quickly smiled and replied, it's just the lyrics. Inside she thought if the people chasing me lined up to hell that would be more accurate. Everyone hates me anyway. She quickly changed the subject and said, by the way, I came first in the exams. What Wanwan didn't expect was that Si Yihan simply replied with a neutral not the least bit surprised, as if her coming first was just something expected. Compared to all the doubts from others today, seeing Si Yihan's reaction, Wanwan was deeply touched to realize that the first person to believe in her was this big bad wolf. While lost in thought, she felt Si Yihan suddenly pinch her lips and kiss her, whispering, well done. Wanwan couldn't help but feel speechless. She hadn't done anything, yet it felt like she was being rewarded with a kiss. Oh well, if it makes the big bad wolf happy. Wait a minute, how did he get into the girls' dormitory? What if the dorm manager catches us? While she was pondering, Si Yihan got up and walked toward the bed saying, set the alarm for 2 hours. Then he pulled Wanwan into his arms to sleep. Wanwan looked at him and said, this bed isn't soft, it's uncomfortable to sleep on. Don't you want to go back and sleep? Si Yihan gazed at her and softly replied, it's soft and comfortable. Wanwan secretly wondered, is he talking about the bed or about me? But when she looked up, she saw Si Yihan had already fallen asleep. Si Yihan asked her to keep talking, and Wanwan, after thinking for a moment, started reciting pi symbol. Watching Si Yihan sleep, Wanwan couldn't help but think he was truly one of a kind. Just then a sharp knock came at the door, startling Wanwan. Of course, just when I'm trying to relax, something bad happens. I thought it was the dorm manager coming to check. Wanwan quickly woke Si Yihan, urging him to hide in the bathroom. Seeing the look in his eyes, which seemed like he could destroy the world, Wanwan couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness. After 2 kisses and repeated requests, Si Yihan finally had no choice but to agree. After seeing Si Yihan head into the bathroom, Wanwan thought to herself, if 1 kiss doesn't solve the problem, then 2 should do the trick. When she opened the door again, it was Shin Mingqi. Seeing Wanwan's flawless natural face, Shin Mingqi was momentarily stunned, realizing that Wanwan was actually very beautiful. However, she pretended to scold, Yi Wanwan, why did you remove your makeup? Why stop pretending to be ugly? What if Si Yihan's people find out? Wanwan looked at her performance and said, he even likes my ugly makeup. What if he likes the good-looking version of me too? Shin Mingqi was shocked, feeling uneasy. She had spent so much effort trying to have Yi Wanwan kicked out of the manor by Si Yihan, but now she couldn't quite put her finger on why Wanwan seemed different. She quickly responded, how could that be? You've forgotten how Si Yihan, that big bad wolf, tortured you 2 years ago. Wanwan let out a cold laugh, her mind clear. In her past life, she had foolishly been used to get close to Si Yihan, helping the Shin family become a prestigious name in the capital. In this life, Shin Mingqi wanted to climb over her, but that was never going to happen. Wanwan knew Si Yihan could hear her, so she said aloud, you've really worked hard for me, huh? Making me pretend to be ugly to avoid Si Yihan, even trying to make me run away, and all the while, you've been sending messages between me and Gu Yuezha. Shin Mingqi, thinking Wanwan was still the same as before, excitedly grabbed Wanwan's hand and said, we're best friends. If I don't help you, who will? You've finally left the manor, hurry and go find Gu Yuezha. Wanwan immediately pulled her hand away and coldly replied, just a worn-out shoe. At this moment she had come to terms with everything, thinking to herself, if my cousin Yi likes him, then let her have him. Shin Mingqi tried to keep pressing, continuing to persuade her, but Wanwan coldly replied, I'm tired. You should leave. Shin Mingqi thought Wanwan was acting strange. She used to hang on her every word, but now Wanwan was so distant, leaving her no choice but to leave helplessly. Once Shin Mingqi had gone, Wanwan quickly headed toward the bathroom, thinking to herself, Si Yihan must have heard everything. The next moment, Wanwan was suddenly pinned against the wall by Si Yihan. He gently pinched her chin and said arrogantly, sleep with me for 6 hours and I'll forgive you. Wanwan nervously asked, sleep with you? Do you mean the literal sense, or is there another meaning? Si Yihan lowered his head and continued, if you want it to mean something else, that's fine too. Wanwan awkwardly smiled and replied, no need, let's stick to the literal meaning. Honestly, just sleeping with him is already enough to make my head spin. Lying in bed, Si Yihan watched Wanwan sleep peacefully, feeling that ever since that night, she had slowly become more and more unpredictable. He thought it all seemed a bit unreal, wondering to himself, could she be like a mirage, something that will eventually disappear? Just then his phone buzzed with a new message. Si Yihan opened it to find another message from Shin Mingqi, stirring up trouble between him and Wanwan. 6 hours later, Si Yihan walked out of the dormitory building. The butler noticed Si Yihan's complexion had greatly improved, and since the love letter incident, things had been much calmer between the two. The butler spoke up. "Ninth Master, should we still keep Shin Mingqi around? She keeps provoking you and Miss Yi, and her influence on Miss Yi is too strong." Before he could finish, Si Yihan coldly interrupted, "Do you think my relationship with her can be swayed by just anyone?" The butler was speechless, mentally grumbling to himself, "Really? Where does this confidence come from? You used to lose your temper every time someone tried to stir things up. Don't you realize what you were like? Even if you don't care about Shin Mingqi, you know how easily Yi Wanwan can be manipulated. Well, I hope she figures it out on her own." Waking up in the morning, Wanwan changed into her signature bad girl outfit, still wondering when Si Yihan would leave. Suddenly, Shin Mingqi hooked her arm around Wanwan's, saying she'd accompany her for breakfast. Seeing that Wanwan was still pretending to be ugly, Shin Mingqi thought to herself, "It looks like she listened to what I said yesterday." During breakfast, Shin Mingqi asked again about Wanwan and the school heartthrob, Si Xia. "What's going on with you two? Don't tell me you've fallen for him." Wanwan coldly replied, "Not interested." After they left, Wanwan thought to herself, "I need to handle the situation with Si Xia and the play, or Shin Mingqi will use this against me and report to Si Yihan." Returning to her seat, Wanwan noticed her makeup and Si Xia turned to look at her, his face filled with disdain. But Wanwan wasn't bothered. She took out her phone and quickly informed her boyfriend Si Yihan about the play, adding, "The prince I'm acting with is so unattractive. He's nowhere near as good-looking as you." At that moment, Si Xia happened to catch a glimpse of the text message. He felt as though he had taken 1,000 emotional hits. No one had ever insulted him like that before. Wanwan realized that Si Xia had seen the content of the text message. She quickly waved her hand, trying to comfort him. "Don't feel too bad about yourself. You're not bad-looking, just, compared to my boyfriend, you fall short." Si Xia, speechless, laid his head on the desk, completely ignoring her. Meanwhile, Si Yihan was at home, receiving a diagnosis from a traditional Chinese doctor. His grandmother, visibly worried, eagerly asked the doctor about her grandson's condition. Upon hearing the doctor say he hadn't slept for 3 days, she immediately exploded in anger, demanding to know what was going on. The doctor quickly explained, "The ninth master's condition is mental. He can only sleep when his mood is good." Just then, Si Yihan received a message from Wanwan and couldn't help but smile. His grandmother, shocked, covered her mouth in surprise, thinking to herself, "It's been years since I've seen my grandson smile like that." She quickly approached him and asked, "Who sent you that message? Why are you so happy?" Si Yihan remained his usual cold self and simply replied, "A message from my girlfriend." Hearing the news, his grandmother immediately broke into a wide grin and eagerly asked, "What kind of woman is she?" Si Yihan casually replied, "Yi Wanwan." Overjoyed at the news, his grandmother hurriedly urged, "Bring her here so I can see her." Si Yihan unusually changed his expression and said indifferently, "Let me ask her first." His grandmother, excited, went off to prepare ingredients. As soon as she stepped out, she sternly asked the servants, "When did Si Yihan get a girlfriend?" The butler and the others were speechless, thinking to themselves, "Yi Wanwan has been forced into staying by the ninth master for the past 2 years. This is called a relationship." Meanwhile, Wanwan was preparing to perform in the play Snow White with Si Xia. Although her role would only last a few seconds, it ended with an unexpected kiss scene. The other girls looked at her with hatred in their eyes as if she were their enemy, simply because she was acting with their idol, Si Xia. In the school auditorium, the girls were protesting, demanding that Si Xia change the female lead. In their eyes, the true Snow White should be Qing Shui, the campus beauty, not Yi Wanwan, this ugly woman. Seeing the furious looks on the girls' faces, Wanwan thought they were just being childish. After all, with the memories of her past life, her mental age was far more mature than theirs. Wanwan casually remarked, "It's just a few seconds of acting, is it really that serious?" Qing Shui thought to herself, "It's true that the scene doesn't have much screen time, but it's a kiss scene. The thought of the kiss scene made Qing Shui even angrier and she yelled at Wanwan, "Yi Wanwan, don't push it." Turning to Xia, she asked, "Xia, are you really going to act with someone like her?" At this point Xia had had enough. He snapped, "Shut up all of you. I drew the lot and now I'm starting the rehearsal. If you want to watch, watch. If not, get lost." Xia was also frustrated. He had drawn the lot, thinking men shouldn't go back on their word, but he didn't want to act with someone as repulsive as Yi Wanwan. Wanwan, seeing her efforts to stop the scene were futile, thought to herself, if they want to act, let them. I'll see how long they can last. The rehearsal began and all the students wore expressions of deep sorrow. Xia felt as though the scene was more depressing than attending a funeral. Wanwan, noticing this, deliberately reapplied her lipstick, intending to make Xia uncomfortable. Xia thought to himself, better to die early and transcend. As he closed his eyes ready to kiss her, one of the girls nearby couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "No. At least do it properly, you have to fake it first, even that is unacceptable." Xia opened his eyes and saw Wanwan with her lipstick on, lips puckered as if she were waiting for something. Xia instantly felt disgusted, his stomach turning. He quickly covered his mouth and ran out of the room. After throwing up, he came back and demanded that Wanwan change her lipstick. Wanwan casually replied, "It's poisoned, my lips must be green." Xia, hearing this, exploded in anger. "I told you to change, so change." Wanwan had no choice but to agree. After changing the lipstick, Wanwan laid back down, but by now, Xia had a deep psychological scar. As he walked toward Wanwan, cold sweat involuntarily formed on his forehead. When he was about to kiss her, he saw Wanwan's makeup. Once again he couldn't hold it in and ran out, covering his mouth. Watching Xia flee in defeat, Wanwan stood up, silently thinking, does he really have to cling to his pride like that? If he had just asked the teacher to switch roles, it would have been so much easier. Not everyone has such a strange taste like Si Yihan. Later that night, in her dorm, Wanwan picked up her laptop and began searching for books on movie scriptwriting. Her schoolwork no longer required much of her energy. She knew she had to make the most of her time. After all, getting into university was just the beginning. Next, she needed to take everything her father had lost from Yi Shaoan and Yi. Years ago, Yi had tricked her into a bar, using Gu Yuezhi's name. Then a group of people surrounded her, forced her to drink and even filmed it. The scene, with both men and women, was one that anyone would misunderstand. That video was then used by her uncle to blackmail her father into handing over his shares, forcing him to take the blame for embezzlement and ultimately giving up everything from the Yi family. Later, to keep her from feeling guilty, her father hid the truth from her. And after her father lost power, Gu Yuezhi called off their engagement, and she was left estranged from her parents. It was a mistake to confuse a wolf for a lover and to see her closest kin as enemies. "Mom, Dad, wait for me. I'll get everything back from them." Suddenly, her phone rang, breaking Wanwan's train of thought. It was none other than the big bad wolf, Si Yihan. Feeling guilty about her performance in the play, Wanwan quickly answered the phone and reported the rehearsal progress, adding, "The prince is so ugly, I almost threw up while acting." Si Yihan directly asked, "Are you free this Saturday? Grandma wants to see you." The words immediately sent Wanwan into a wave of memories. In her past life she had gone to meet Grandma too, but back then she had listened to her best friend's provocation. She deliberately acted ugly and rebelled against the old lady, trying to keep her distance. But Grandma truly cared for her. No matter how disrespectful she was, the old lady didn't mind at all. It wasn't until she cursed Si Yihan to death that she finally touched Grandma's bottom line. Grandma was so enraged that she collapsed and passed away, her health breaking down from the shock. No matter how much she despised Si Yihan, Grandma's tolerance for her was undeniable, and she never cared about her family's issues. On the other end of the phone, Si Yihan waited for a long time without hearing a response from Wanwan and assumed she didn't want to go. He said, "If you don't want to go, that's fine." Wanwan quickly snapped out of her thoughts and replied, "I'll go, I'm just a little nervous since it's my first time meeting Grandma." She then asked, "What does Grandma like? What kind of clothes does she like?" Si Yihan heard her question but stayed silent for a long time. Finally Wanwan asked, "Are you still there?" Si Yihan was surprised and asked, "You really want to go?" Wanwan replied, "Of course. But you still haven't answered my question." Si Yihan said domineeringly. You don't need to prepare anything. I'll pick you up on Saturday. On Saturday morning, butler Su Yi, a bit worried, said to Si Yihan, with Yi Wanwan's character meeting the grandmother might be. Before he could finish, Si Yihan coldly interrupted, since when do I need your advice on how to do things? Su Yi trembled with fear, lowering his head immediately. When he saw Wanwan's bare face, the butler's jaw nearly dropped to the floor. Wanwan took out a small notebook from her bag and started muttering to herself as she went through the gift list for Grandma. I'm poor, I'll handle choosing the gifts, but you're responsible for the money. Unbeknownst to her, Si Yihan, watching from the side, felt a warmth in his heart and couldn't help but lean in and kiss her gently. He thought to himself, if you're tricking me, I hope you trick me for the rest of my life. Feeling Si Yihan's emotions, Wanwan mistakenly thought that her boyfriend didn't like her natural look. She quickly said to Si Yihan, Grandma probably won't like women with heavy makeup, so I guess I'll have to disappoint you. Upon learning how much effort Wanwan had put in for Grandma, Si Yihan's long-frozen heart finally melted. He swiftly pulled the bewildered Wanwan into his arms and kissed her again, leaving a truckload of love, the air thick with affection. Finally, carrying a heap of bags, Wanwan arrived at the manor and entered the estate. As she stood there again, memories of the guilt she felt toward the elderly woman from her past life made her heart tighten with anxiety. She instinctively reached out and grabbed Si Yihan's hand. Si Yihan froze in place, not knowing how to respond. Realizing what she had done, Wanwan quickly apologized. As she tried to pull her hand back, Si Yihan tightly held on. The two of them walked side by side toward the house, silently understanding each other. Feeling the warmth in his hand, Wanwan's nervous heart slowly settled. When Grandma saw them walking in hand, she was momentarily stunned. Si Yihan actually willingly held a girl's hand? Si Yihan called her name softly, bringing Grandma back to her senses. With a kind smile, Grandma greeted Wanwan warmly and immediately pulled her toward the dining table, leaving Si Yihan standing off to the side. At the dinner table, Grandma told Wanwan, a few days ago, Si Yihan saw the message you sent and actually smiled. Wanwan was equally shocked, thinking to herself, this big bad wolf actually smiled while reading a message? Si Yihan, still his usual cold self, remained silent, but he continuously filled Wanwan's plate with food. By the time she noticed, her bowl was already overflowing with dishes. Wanwan had already eaten 3 bowls. Since it was her first time meeting Grandma, she didn't want to leave the impression of being a bottomless pit, so she quickly said, please don't give me any more, I can't eat anymore. To her surprise, the big bad wolf, who had a tendency toward cleanliness, took her bowl and started eating from it himself. Wanwan was curious, thinking to herself, doesn't he have a cleanliness obsession? But Grandma was very pleased with Wanwan, thinking she had a good appetite and didn't pick at her food. She found it much more agreeable than those spoiled young ladies. After the meal, Grandma asked Si Yihan to take Wanwan for a walk outside. The two of them walked side by side through the garden, enjoying the fresh air and beautiful scenery. Suddenly, Wanwan noticed something was off with Si Yihan's mood. She wondered to herself, I haven't done anything wrong, so why is he acting like this? By this time, Si Yihan had already walked far ahead, almost disappearing into the darkness alone. On this dark and windy night, Wanwan felt a chill running through her. She hurried after him, grabbing his hand tightly, and only then did she let out a sigh of relief. But then she realized the coldness around Si Yihan had vanished. It turned out that he had been sulking because she hadn't taken his hand. Wanwan couldn't help but think to herself, seriously? Wanwan thought to herself, could he really be this childish? The two of them walked hand in hand to a bench and sat down. Wanwan felt nervous, unsure of how to spend the night. To break the awkward silence, Wanwan softly said, Grandma is so kind, I was worried she wouldn't like me. However, the stoic Si Yihan remained silent, and the air became unbearably quiet. Wanwan felt more awkward than ever. She tried again, Grandma calls you little 9. Do you really have 8 older siblings? Si Yihan didn't reply, and Wanwan felt like the air around them had grown even colder. He suddenly realized, oh no, why did I ask such a dangerous question? Si Yihan had 8 siblings, but there are hardly any left now. When Si Yihan seized power, the entire family was thrown into a bloody storm, and his terrifying god of death reputation was born from that time. Seeing him act so gentle in front of Grandma today, Wan had completely forgotten about all of that. Just thinking about it made her feel a chill down her spine. Just then Si Yihan actually leaned his head onto her shoulder. Wan thought that Si Yihan was about to make a move on her, and she tensed up, feeling like she couldn't escape this fate. But when she looked more carefully, she realized he had actually fallen asleep. Wan immediately let out a sigh of relief. She felt a sense of survival as if she had just escaped a near disaster, and her heart finally calmed down. From a distance, Grandma was also puzzled. How could little Nine be asleep? She couldn't help but ask the doctor, "Didn't you say little Nine's insomnia has been getting worse lately? He's been unable to sleep for days, so what's going on now?" The doctor, equally puzzled, asked, "How did the ninth master manage to fall asleep?" Grandma sighed and said, "I'm not sure. I just came over and saw little Nine asleep, leaning against Wan. The doctor and butler recalled the few times the young master had managed to sleep recently, and realized that last time he had also fallen asleep beside Yi Wan. Could it be that the young master's sleep depends on Yi Wan? Hearing this, Grandma seemed to have found the solution. A sense of hope filled her heart. Perhaps little Nine's condition could be cured after all. Si Yihan had fallen asleep and Wan picked up her phone, scrolling through entertainment news. Apart from the prodigy Xiejiji, who had been a sensation since his debut, most of the big stars 7 years later were still unknown. The Yi family now dominated half of the entertainment industry, and in a few years Shin Mingqi's small company would also grow to be on par with it. But both the Yi and Shin families had risen by stepping on my family. In this life I will never let them have it easy. I will take back everything I've lost, crush the Yi family, and reclaim my place at the top of the entertainment world. However, the premise is that Si Yihan gives me some freedom. He'll definitely refuse to let me be an artist, but being behind the scenes or working as a manager shouldn't be a problem. There's even a good prospect at school right now. I might be able to recruit him early. Just as she was lost in thought, Si Yihan suddenly woke up. Wan warmly asked, "Do you want to go home to sleep? It's cold to sleep here." To her surprise, Si Yihan hugged her and asked softly, "Will you sleep with me?" Wan was a bit speechless, thinking to herself, what's with this somewhat spoiled tone? Surprised that Si Yihan was acting this way, though she thought this to herself, Wan still agreed aloud. Before she could finish her sentence, Si Yihan said, "Let's go," and immediately got up to leave. Wan couldn't help but think to herself, I accidentally agreed and now he's walking so fast. How happy is he? As they entered the room, Wan saw that the servants had already prepared the room according to Grandma's instructions. She said to Si Yihan, "I'll drop my things off and take a quick shower before I join you." Si Yihan nodded in agreement. Looking at the beautifully decorated room, Wan couldn't help but think, Grandma really treats me like a granddaughter-in-law, or she wouldn't have gone to all this trouble to prepare such a surprise. She recalled her past life, where she had deliberately nitpicked, criticizing every little thing in the room. After her shower, Wan came out to find Si Yihan had somehow already laid down on her bed. She said to him, "I'll just blow dry my hair and do my skincare, it'll be quick." While Wan dried her hair and did her skincare, Si Yihan remained silent, his eyes never leaving her. Wan couldn't help but feel like she was in a scene from ancient times, waiting on an emperor. Quickly Wan said, "All right, let's go to your room." Wan's mind was still racing, thinking to herself, how exactly is this sleeping together supposed to go? As they entered the room, she saw that the hypnotist Mo Xian was also present. She hesitated for a moment before asking, if I'm here, will I be interrupting you guys?" She also thought to herself, isn't hypnosis supposed to be done in a completely quiet environment? However, Si Yihan didn't think much of it. Lying on the bed, he simply said to Wan, "Come here." Wan froze for a moment before responding blithely. Before she knew it, she was pulled into his embrace. Mo Xian, seeing this, was filled with confusion. When did the usually tough Wan become so docile? He walked to the edge of the bed and called out to Si Yihan, "Ninth Master, we can start now." When there was no response, he called again, "Ninth Master." Wan, still in Si Yihan's arms, turned to Mo Xian and said, I think he's already asleep." "Mo Xian, you're amazing." Hearing this, Mo Xian felt awkward. What's so amazing? I didn't do anything at all. But it seemed like Si Yihan really had fallen asleep and was sleeping so soundly, even the sound of people talking didn't wake him. Could it be that his natural sleep had something to do with Wanwan? But she hadn't done anything, she had just stayed there. Then Emo Xian turned to Wanwan and said, "Since the ninth master is asleep, I'll take my leave now." Wanwan nodded in response. In the morning, Si Yihan was busy handling company matters while Wanwan sat nearby, focused on her studies. Butler Su Yi stood quietly beside them, creating a warm and peaceful atmosphere. Su Yi was surprised, thinking to himself, Wanwan seems so well behaved, almost like she's been possessed by something. All the things I worried about didn't happen, looks like I really overthought it. Suddenly the phone rang. Wanwan checked the caller ID and saw it was Shin Mingqi. She turned to Si Yihan and said, "Darling, I'll take this call." She thought to herself, this is exactly when it happened in my past life. Shin Mingqi called to tell Wanwan that Gu Yuezha had been in a car accident. She naturally wouldn't pass up such a perfect opportunity to stir the pot. On the other side, Butler Su Yi also informed Si Yihan, "I just received news that Gu Yuezha has been in a serious car accident and is in critical condition at the hospital." He thought to himself, if Wanwan finds out about this, all the pretense will be torn apart. Wanwan answered the phone and Shin Mingqi made the situation sound very serious. She also mentioned that the car accident was suspicious and questioned who had the audacity to harm the eldest son of the Gu family. Wanwan thought to herself, this is just a subtle hint trying to link it to Si Yihan, hoping to deepen the misunderstanding between us. In reality, it's just a simple traffic accident. However, she replied aloud, "Got it." Wanwan thought to herself, she's probably waiting at the hospital entrance, eager to catch me with evidence of an affair, so she can go run and tell Si Yihan. Well, if that's the case, let's have some fun with her. She ran up to Si Yihan and said, "Darling, it's getting late, I need to head back to school." Si Yihan turned and asked, "Back to school?" Wanwan picked up her bag and said to him, "Yeah, you stay busy. Don't worry about me. I'll say goodbye to Grandma and head back on my own." Seeing Si Yihan's calm expression, Wanwan thought to herself, he probably already knows I'm going to see Gu Yuezha. She quickly kissed Si Yihan on the cheek and said, "I'll be going now." Si Yihan watched Wanwan's rapidly disappearing figure, his gaze turning cold. The air around them seemed to grow colder instantly, and Butler Su Yi trembled as he asked, "Ninth Master, should we stop her?" Si Yihan closed his eyes in pain, remaining silent, lost in thought. After leaving the manor, Wanwan arrived at the hospital. Shin Mingqi, spotting her from across the room, thought to herself, this idiot, just one phone call and she's here obediently. So what if she's pretty? She's still spinning in my hands. Shin Mingqi quickly took out her phone and sent a message to Si Yihan, thinking, although I hate to admit it, Si Yihan truly cares about her. If he knew she was sick, he'd definitely come to the hospital to see her. Wanwan smirked to herself. When Si Yihan rushes here full of concern and sees me being intimate with Gu Yuezha, that scene is going to be very interesting. What Shin Mingqi didn't know was that Wanwan was quietly watching her from upstairs. Wanwan muttered to herself, "You think I'll walk into the hospital, and you'll immediately run off to snitch and stir up trouble." She thought to herself, if Si Yihan keeps misunderstanding me, then next time even if I'm lying he might subconsciously believe it's true. Though it's a risky move, the only way to earn Si Yihan's trust is by using some special methods. In the manor, Si Yihan's phone buzzed. Su Yi saw that the message was from Shin Mingqi and his heart sank. He felt even more certain that this wasn't going to end well. After reading the message, Si Yihan dialed Wanwan's number with a blank expression. When she answered, he coldly asked, "Wanwan, where are you?" Wanwan replied, "I had to handle something and stopped by Renai Hospital on the way." Before she could finish, Si Yihan cut her off and ordered in a domineering tone, "Come back to the manor now." After saying something that left no room for negotiation, Si Yihan hung up the phone and said to Su Yi, "Go find out what Wanwan has been up to." Su Yi quickly agreed. The manor was quiet and cold under the night sky. Holding the medicine, Wanwan thought to herself, in less than half a month, I'm locked here again. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the halls. Wanwan jumped in surprise as the door was pushed open. She turned to see Si Yihan standing in the doorway. Wanwan was stunned like a bolt of lightning, and the medicine in her hand spilled across the floor. Before she could react, she was forcefully thrown onto the bed. Wanwan sat up, her eyes filled with tears, wanting to explain. But before she could say anything, Si Yihan's hand was already around her neck, choking her. Wan Wan trembled uncontrollably, struggling to breathe. Wan Wan looked into Si Yihan's bloodshot eyes, a chill running down her spine. She felt the pressure on her neck growing stronger, her breathing becoming more and more difficult, almost unbearable. However, Si Yihan, seeing the tears streaming down her face, finally released her, stood up and said in disappointment, "You've lost your chance." The scattered papers in the office seemed to tell the story of a horrifying event that had just occurred. Si Yihan, in agony, clutched his head, lost in thought, unsure of what to make of it. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Si Yihan, his eyes still bloodshot, coldly spat out one word, "Leave." Su Yi trembled as he walked in and apologized, "Sorry, Ninth Master, but this matter is too important. You need to know about it." Holding up his phone, Su Yi said to Si Yihan, "Miss Yi did go to the hospital, but she never met with Gu Yuezha. You should check the surveillance footage." In the video, the doctor asked Wan Wan, "Little lady, what's bothering you?" Wan Wan replied, "It's not me, it's my boyfriend. He suffers from severe insomnia and I wanted to learn about any precautions. I hope it might help him feel a little better." Watching the video footage, Su Yi softly said, "Ninth Master, it seems we may have misunderstood Miss Yi." In the blink of an eye, Si Yihan's figure vanished without a trace. On the other side, the door opened and Si Yihan stood, looking at Wan Wan, who was crying with her head in her hands. His gaze then shifted to the medicine bag lying on the floor. He reached down and picked up the notebook. Flipping it open to see the notes Wan Wan had made for him, along with the registration form from Runai Hospital. Seeing these, Si Yihan felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, his body trembling uncontrollably. As a man known for his stoic demeanor, he wanted to comfort Wan Wan, but seeing her trembling in fear only deepened his sense of guilt. Despite his inner conflict, his outstretched hand hesitated, not knowing what to say or how to speak. He suddenly remembered what Wan Wan had said before, maybe trying the sweet melon would be nice. In that moment, the cold, icy barrier around his heart shattered, and his feelings were flooded with guilt and affection. Wan Wan lifted her head and softly said to Si Yihan, "I'm sorry, I was wrong, I know I was wrong." She repeated the words, her voice soft and trembling with innocence and grievance, her face streaked with tears, like a rain-drenched pear blossom. It was enough to break even the hardest of hearts. Si Yihan watched the scene, guilt and heartache welling up inside him, rendering him speechless. A man who was never good with words, at that moment he couldn't utter a single sentence. Thankfully, Su Yi walked in just then, breaking the silence. Su Yi turned to Wan Wan and said, "Miss Yi, the situation has been clarified. The Ninth Master knows you didn't go to see Gu Yuezha." Wan Wan looked at Si Yihan in surprise. She then covered her head, choking back sobs, and said, "Si Yihan, I didn't lie to you or betray you. I went to see the doctor." At that moment, Si Yihan couldn't hold back any longer. He pulled Wan Wan into his arms tightly, lowering his head to say, "I know." Su Yi, watching the scene from the side, thought to himself, her good intentions were misunderstood, and she must be really heartbroken. "But Ninth Master, she's crying like this, can't you comfort her?" After a moment, Si Yihan released Wan Wan and ordered, "Su Yi, take her to school." He then turned and left. Watching the titanium-hard man walk away, Su Yi felt helpless. He lowered his head and comforted the still crying Wan Wan, saying, "Miss Yi, don't cry. Don't worry, everything has been cleared up." Wan Wan nodded softly, her eyes still filled with tears. Not long after, Su Yi took Wan Wan to the school.